You guys aren't ominous at all. I'm not terrified right now. My palms aren't sweaty, I promise. But I am actually really glad to do this. This is special for me. I've only been with you guys for a semester, but I feel like I've known most of you my entire life. So I thank you for that. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you that it's Senior Rec, and just thank you for a beautiful morning, that we can come together and worship you. Please be with me as I give this message, and help to calm my nerves, and help my words to be yours and not mine. We love you, and we can't wait to see you. Amen. So I want to start off with a story. So the year is 1902, and a man named this man, his name is Ernest Shackleton, and he had the most ambitious idea of his life. So he's an Irishman, but he's living in England, and this is during a period of worldwide imperialism. So every country wants to grab as much territory as they can. They want to seem as powerful as they can be. And England is the biggest empire in the world. And he wants to lead an expedition to the South Pole, as well as establish a base on the Antarctic coast, effectively claiming the island for Great Britain. This, he decides, will be his future. And so he gathers the money required for the journey, and he sets off. And he beats the previous record before having to turn back because all of his food spoiled and the sled dogs died. However, he's not satisfied. This is his chosen future. He will accomplish this, and so he gathers a bunch more money and sets off 4 years later. He buys another ship and sets off. And this time he's able to get to where he can see the South Pole, see what he wants his future to be, but he can't set foot on it, and he has to turn back again. He's still not satisfied. He decides to try a third time, and this time he will reach the South Pole at any cost. He buys another ship, gets another crew, gets all the provisions needed, and he sets off one final time in 1914. And the crew tries, and they set off. In 2 days' time, they reach the pack ice that surrounds Antarctica. And usually when ships reach this part, the ice was brittle enough that they could chip away and slowly make their way through over time. But this was not the case. The ice engulfed the ship completely, pressed on it from all sides. They couldn't move. The ship is frozen in place, and the hull is in danger of breaking. And some of the crew had done this voyage with Shackleton before, and they know that what the ice grabs, the ice usually kept. And so, over time, their ship is starting to sink deeper and deeper. Their hope is slowly dying, and they have to make a decision. Do we abandon the ship and brave the ice now, or do we wait out winter? And this decision is actually made for them because on April 9th, the ice cracks and their hull splits and their ship starts to sink. And in order to save themselves, they have to abandon ship. And they rush to the lifeboats and they make it just in time. And they have to combat the freezing ocean spray and the remainder of the ice pack before eventually making it to Elephant Island. By this time, their expedition's been going on for 500 days. And they're running low on supplies as well as mental strength. And they know they must do something in order to stay alive. And so Shackleton and 5 other men set out on a lifeboat to get help from a whaling station 800 miles away. And they battled the monstrous swells and the angry winds for 16 days, land on the wrong side of the island because they were blown off course, and have to spend another day and a half crossing the island before eventually exhaustedly stumbling into the whaling station and begging for help for the rest of the stranded crew. Ernest Shackleton never reached the South Pole. He never saw what he wanted his future to be actually accomplished. During all 3 of his expeditions, there were many times where he felt uncertain, terrified about the safety of himself and his crew and his goal, his future as a whole. Have you ever felt like Shackleton did? Some of you do feel like Shackleton today, afraid of your future, and you don't know where to turn. Your ship is sinking before your eyes. Your hope is dying, and you don't know if you can keep it together anymore. And it's different for all of us. We all have different issues that we have to deal with. Some of us have financial insecurity, uncertainty, job uncertainty, relationship issues. All of these things we're trying to fight through, and sometimes it feels like we don't have the strength to keep it together at all anymore. And since it's Senior Rec Week, I should also mention that last night when Mr. Helm stood up here and said that 4 months to the day, from last night. We're going to be up here again, graduating. My heart skipped 5 beats and my mouth dried out completely. I'm terrified, and I know some of you are as well. Some of us have our entire future planned out. I'm going to go to this college, get this job, do this, like X, Y amount of things, and it's going to be great, but some of us have no idea what we're going to do after those 4 months. And that terrifies us. And this is also a new year. And that comes with challenges for all of us. So in all of this uncertainty and all of this fear and all of this doubt about how our future is going to play out, I think it's only fitting that today we go over 3 reasons why you can trust God in your fear of the future and how to know that he's already there to help you get through it. All of us in some way or another are stuck in our own version of Shackleton's ship, waiting out the winter and praying that the ice doesn't crack our hull and damage our hope. One way I like to see the ships is God's hope. Our one hope that our future will be delivered, that we will survive. It feels like a godly promise. And so that leads me to my first sermon point. Trusting God in your future starts with trusting him in the present. And so with this, I want to tell another story. You will see a theme with that. So Saul, the first king of Israel, he's fallen out of favor with God. He was the chosen one, chosen by God as well as the people of Israel to lead them, to make them strong, to defeat the Philistines, to follow the Lord. But time and time again, he's not only shown disbelief in God's commands, but straight up defiance. Saul thinks his way is best, and so God withdraws his favor and tells the prophet Samuel to go to the shepherd Jesse and find and anoint a new king from among his sons. And so Samuel sees the firstborn, Eliab, tall man, handsome, strong. And Samuel looks at him and he sees Saul. He sees the chosen one. But God says, 1 Samuel 16:7, "But the Lord said to Samuel, 'Do not look at his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart.'" So Samuel's looking at Eliab and he's seeing Saul. He's seeing a king. But the Lord sees that Eliab is not fit to lead Israel into the future. Later mentions of him show that he had an ego, he had anger problems, and didn't trust God. And so Samuel goes through all of Jesse's sons, and none of them, God says, are fit to lead. The one that is fit to lead and is chosen by God for the future is one that wasn't even there. He had to go out of his way to find David. And so he gets out the oil and anoints this scrawny little shepherd boy, and he can't believe his ears, but he's hearing God command him to anoint this child. "You are the next king of Israel. You will lead us and deliver us from the power of the Philistines. You are called to walk with God, intercede on a nation's behalf. You are called to a future, because you trust him to be faithful to you now." And David shows this faith immediately because the Philistines are waging war against Israel, and Jesse's sons are drafted to fight with Saul on the front lines. And so Jesse has David bring them food. And so when David arrives, what he finds is this: a giant challenging them to a duel. If the giant wins, Israel is enslaved. They don't have a man that can fight him. Everyone's terrified. 1 Samuel 17:26. "And David said to the men who stood by him, 'What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?' David has faith that Israel's future will be one free from Philistine oppression. The Lord has given them into their hands. They will be free. They will have a free future. But they have to have faith now. Faith today for the future God has promised them for their tomorrow. And only David has this faith. Then David said to the Philistine, 'You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. The battle for our promised future isn't in our hands or our power, it's in God's.' When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell on his face to the ground. Through David's faith in the present, God delivered Israel's future. After this, David becomes one of Saul's most trusted men. He drives all of the Philistines away from Israel, and with battle after battle, his legend grows. And people sing in the streets how great he is. Saul has killed his thousands, David has killed his 10,000s. He becomes a living legend in Israel, and Saul exiles him out of jealousy for it. David now has to be on the run from someone who threatens to destroy the future that God has given him. And his faith is going to be put to the test almost immediately because Saul pursues him, and David hides in a cave. And Saul's company gets there, and how do I say this? Saul goes in to answer nature's call, and instantly David's faith in God's future for him is put to the test by his friends, the people around him, the men he had fled with, and he has to choose whether to listen to them or continue to trust God's plan. And the men of David said to him, "Here is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you." Then David arose and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. David knows that by taking his future into his own hands, he is showing that he doesn't trust God, as well as becoming, in a sense, just like Saul, ruthless, willing to kill a defenseless man because of the bad counsel of his friends. Nowhere before had God told David that Saul would be delivered into his hands to be able to kill. He had only been delivered the throne. David's faith is so strong here because he's outnumbered 5-1. Saul has a bounty on his head, Israel's army is against him, it seems like everyone's turning against him, and he has all of these voices yelling at him about what the future should be. Kill, kill, take your future into your hands, don't trust God. And with all the noise, all of the voices, he zeroes in completely on the Father. What do you want my future to be? What should I do? Don't take your future into your own hands. Don't do what the world does. Don't unsheathe your sword. Cut the robe instead and leave it up to God. David's relationship is so strong that he realizes he will be king even if he spares Saul because he knows that God keeps his promises. He has faith that God will deliver him the future. And this is David talking to Saul. "May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you, but my hand shall not be against you. Let the Lord judge what your future may be. But I will not take judgment into my own hands. The future is in God's hands, not mine. He's decreed it. I haven't come up with it myself." God helped David slay lions and bears to protect his father's flocks. He helped him kill Goliath and deliver Israel from the Philistines. The future was out of his hands, but because of his faith, God gave him the strength to deal with it. And that led to David becoming Israel's greatest king. And some of you have your Goliaths and your bears and your lions, but if you zero in on the Father and trust him in the present, he will lead you to a glorious future. And this leads me to my second sermon point. God will deliver your future when it seems impossible. He will be your manpower in the overwhelming shadow of defeat. He will be the mightiest warrior of his time and deliver you your future. We all know the story of Gideon, right? He's one of the best underdog stories in the Bible. He's a part of the weakest Israelite tribe, and as he's threshing wheat one day, an angel comes down to him and tells him something crazy. God's going to use him to bring an extraordinary future to all of Israel. He's going to use Gideon to defeat the Midianites, their oppressors. Judges 6:11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. Immediately we can see how scared Gideon and Israel are as a whole of Midian and how they fear for their future, because they have to hide while performing an everyday task. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." It's very important to realize why God chose this introduction. It's a period of time where an entire nation is being oppressed daily, with villages being burned and raided, food is being confiscated, hence the hiding in the winepress, and many other forms of atrocities, and there's almost nothing anyone can do about it because they're outmanned. Gideon not only has to live with that going on, but there's the tribe hierarchy, and he's in the weakest tribe. If God is going to choose anyone to deliver Israel, he's going to choose that is which most qualified. The warriors of Judah, warriors of Dan, warriors of Gad. There's no logical reason for God to pick Gideon. a member of the tribe of Benjamin, and he doesn't think God's chosen the best, but what we see is the Lord has. Because regardless of what the world says about choosing someone like this to bring Israel a great future, God has made the right decision. Mighty man of valor. Gideon has so many doubts that God can smell his fear. He recognizes Gideon's fear just as he recognizes ours, and he reassures him by addressing him not by what the world will say he is, but what God is going to make Gideon through his power to be able to succeed in the future. And Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, 'Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian.'" He believes that the future is hopeless. Nothing good can come from it. If God really is with Gideon, why is Israel still oppressed? His faith has become so weak because of his tough circumstances, he's found it hard to trust a messenger from God. He isn't doubting whether or not God exists, but he is scared to walk into the future he's being called to because he doesn't think he has what it takes to destroy Midian on his own. He thinks God is making a mistake. Mighty man of valor, me. You're crazy, God. Sometimes it feels like we can't have faith unless we see all of these mighty miracles. We might even think God is making a mistake with our future, but God reassures Gideon with the only confirmation he needs to succeed. And the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Did not I send you?" Gideon will succeed just because he has God on his side. He has the might. He has the strength required to defeat Midian, not because he was born with it, but because God has given it to him. You have everything you need to succeed in your future, just because it is God who calls you to it. Did not I send you? Your God-given future is being delivered to you on a silver platter, and all you have to do is trust that God will be with you through the whole thing, even when you seem outmanned and it seems impossible. And so then Gideon makes up his army and sets up the camp to prepare for the upcoming battle. The Lord said to Gideon, "The people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, 'My own hand has saved me.' Your future does not have to explicitly come from your hands, from your power alone. Your own hand does not have to save you. Your future comes from God, and that has to come with battles that we cannot fight on our own because we lack the strength, but we can always have faith that God, because God is willing, able, and downright eager to fight with you on the battlefield by your side." Gideon's faith is being tested. If his future is to be certain, logically, it's war. You need a lot of men. And sometimes we can do this in our lives. I have to do this, I have to do that. I have to prepare, I have to have this many things going right to trust. But what God is saying is, you don't need that. The battle belongs to me. No army, no men. Sometimes it might feel like no plan. But the battle belongs to me, and I will deliver you to the future I have prepared for you. Gideon's door to the future has been opened, and through his fear and his uncertainty about it, he has to decide if he trusts God enough to move forward into his promised future, to lead Israel into this victory. I want to tell all of you today, God will deliver your future even when it seems impossible for him to do so. Gideon has to cut his men from 32,000 down to 300. He has less than 1% of the manpower that he started with. His God-given command is to fight and win against a force of 135,000. The odds are 450 to 1. You put any military leader in this situation, Napoleon, Hannibal, Caesar, anyone, they will lose. But Gideon has God, and that's a more powerful commander-in-chief than any of those three men that I just listed. God has promised Gideon he will deliver the future. And our God is a faithful God, and he will always deliver us into the future he has promised us. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch. And they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, "A sword for the Lord, and a sword for Gideon." Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. And the army fled as far as Beth-Shittah, towards Zerubah, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah by Tabath. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. The Lord sets the armies of Midian against one another, and Gideon pushes them back so far that he has to call out all of Israel, many of whom had just been sent home. Hey, let's go, let's fight. God has delivered Midian into our hands. He has delivered our future into our hands. Come fight with me. The Lord will always deliver the future he has planned for you, even when it seems impossible. God's third promise for your future. God will give you the endurance you need to fight the battles in your future. And my last story comes from Joshua chapter 3. And it's this interesting moment because it's after the Israelites have been rescued from Egypt and they've gone through all of these different things. Miraculously, God has helped them get out safely, flee from their oppressors. Moses has been made their leader. He's led them out of Egypt, parted the Red Sea, and led them through the desert, and they're on the Jordan looking across towards their promised land. They're on the cusp of their future. They can look across and see everything God has promised them in their future. And they have all of this free time. They're waiting for the order to cross, and it starts to destroy them. They start to rebel against God and one another. What should have been a nice moment, we can see our future, we're about to go, turned into 40 years. 40 years of waiting and wandering and waiting to step across that river into what God had promised them, into their future. And what had been promised to them was everything. Joshua 1, 3 through 5. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites of the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. God had given them everything. They just had to get there. 40 years they had waited for this, for their future. And this is the moment just before they enter it, into the promised land. And Joshua gives his first order. Then Joshua said to the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. His first action is not to order Israel to cross immediately into their future. He's telling the people to set yourselves apart. Get your heart ready for what's about to come. You are not ready now. Prepare and be ready for when you go. Don't worry about your stuff. He doesn't say anything about packing up your bags and moving. Don't worry about your stuff, your flocks, your tents, your wealth, anything you have. Get your heart ready first. Consecrate yourself for your future. For tomorrow the Lord will do great things among you. You might think this should be tactical, but no. God's saying, wait, take a breath. Get your heart right first for the future I have planned for you. And Israel has been walking for 40 years, and in that time they have lost faith in God and broken themselves. And they've started worshiping other gods. They complain all the time, even when God sends a pillar of cloud to shield them from the sun, as well as manna to feed them daily. They lost faith in Moses as their leader, believed God had abandoned them, all while fighting with each other constantly. Sometimes we can do this. We can lose faith over time because of our circumstances. Maybe we feel God isn't as active in our lives as he used to be, and we lose faith because of it. So it makes sense when God decides, hey, before I lead you into this, before I lead you into this land I promised, this future I've decreed, take a moment. I need to make sure you side with me. I need to make sure your hearts are right, that you are prepared for it. We must make our hearts right with God. We must put our trust in him to be fully ready to appreciate and live properly in that God-given future. The waters separating Israel's present from their future were about to part, and they had to be ready for it. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. The Lord will go into your future ahead of you. He is there already. The Ark of the Covenant is the most sacred relic that the Israelites have. And they believe that the Spirit of God rests inside the box. It's God in a box. So what they're being told is that the priests are going ahead of them, carrying the ark into the waters, and when the priests' feet hit the waters, it will split and they'll be able to walk through. By doing this, it's a representation of how God moves ahead of us into the future he calls us to. What Joshua is telling the people is God is moving into their future before them. He's going first. God is in your future already, calling you to step forward. He's parting the waters for you to cross. But are you going to be willing to take that step, or do you want to be comfortable and stay in the present where you are now and shy away from what God has given you? Israel got so comfortable on the wrong side, staying in their present. They were so worried about their future battles that they looked back on their past favorably to things they had known. They started saying, I'd rather be in Egypt. I was in slavery, but that was a present I knew. That was a present I was comfortable in. Instead of crossing the river into my future, into all of this uncertainty and this doubt, I want my old battles. I don't want to deal with the new ones. They keep thinking, if we survive, if we hold on a bit longer, if we do this, that, if we prepare, get this ready, we're going to be set. We're going to be ready for when we cross the river. We're going to be ready for our future. If we fix our problems now, then and only then will the environment be right for us to cross. To finally become the person we know we should be, to go into the future God calls us to. If I wait a little longer, if I hold on, then I'll be ready for when I cross. This is a mindset that many of us struggle with. But here's the thing. Here's the slap in the face from reality that is unfortunate. Our battles never actually end. If you think, I finally won that battle, I dealt with that, life is going to be easy, it's going to be a straight street, you have another thing coming. You have another battle coming. You've got another trial in your life. And if you never win your current battle, you'll never be ready for the next one. You'll never reach it. Remember COVID. I hate to bring it up because it sucked. Remember all those mobs that would go to the store and buy everything? Like, there will be no toilet paper, there will be no water, we're all going to die. But over time, we overcame it. We had 9/11 happen. We had the financial crisis of 2008 happen. Just keep waiting, and eventually you will have another battle. And that's just our things as a country. That's not your thing. That's not your thing. You have messes I don't know about that you don't tell the person next to you. Tax season. The divorce, the payments you can't pay, the depression, the suicidal thoughts, the loss of a loved one, anything and everything that could be going wrong and is going wrong in the world and your life. We all have a battle we're fighting that the person beside us doesn't know about in the present. And when you beat that, you have another waiting for you in your future. We can't find the endurance required for that in ourselves. Just like Israel did not have the endurance required to, by themselves, conquer the entire promised land. But what brings comfort, though, is that we do not have to be the source of our endurance. God is in your future already. His ark, the sign of his presence, the sign of his power, is already there. He is working in the present right now to deliver you a blessed and prosperous future like David. But you have to trust him now. You feel overwhelmed, undermanned. You don't know if you'll see victory because of your battles, your giants, but God will fight for you, with you, be your strength like he was for Gideon. You feel fear when you look across the river, across your Jordan into your future, and it's foggy, and it's misty, everything's hazy. You can't see things clearly, but you can then look behind you and see what God has done for you in the past, in what used to be your present. And that can be what you need to trust him in the future. The memories of what he's done before prove he has the power to do it now. Joshua said to the Israelites, "Come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites." All of these nations, all of these battles. Israel's waited for 40 years, and that's all that waits for them in their promised land for a bit. They have been given that land, but they have to fight. For the first couple of years, they have to fight tooth and nail. Some of them were probably thinking, when I get across there, it's going to be easy. I'm going to build this house. I'm going to marry my girlfriend. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to rest on a beach. You have to fight. Some of us are thinking, I'm going into medicine. I'm going into ministry. I'm going into aviation, engineering, you name it. We're a smart class. I could name anything. You'd probably do it. You have a future that God has planted in your heart. But instead, Israel must cross and they have to fight. Win that battle, you have another. Win that, you have another. School's going badly. Grades are suffering. I changed my major. My friendships don't fulfill me anymore. It feels like people are drifting away from me. I'm constantly worried, constantly stressed. I think I might have depression. I can't keep doing this anymore. I'm exhausted. See, God had promised Israel everything. You touch that ground, that's yours. But you have to be ready for one fight, then the second fight, then the third fight. All of these fights. You have to get ready today and trust God in the present to prepare for the fight tomorrow, not for the sake of tomorrow, but your future as a whole. This is a life process we have to get ready for. To cross the river, you have to prepare, not only for crossing itself and the baby steps you have to take, but for everything ahead of you. You have to trust in the present and fight beside God on the battlefield for your future, while he gives you the endurance required to keep going. When you follow God, it doesn't mean that all your battles will disappear and you'll have an easy life. That's never said anywhere in the Bible. What God is saying is, I will be with you in your battles now. I will walk hand in hand with you until you reach the other side, until you reach the future. And then I have a future planned for you ahead of that. And I'm going to be there as well. He is already there in our future, ready to fight for us. He is there already. He's just calling us to get ready for it. Consecrate yourself. Prepare yourself for the future God has given you that is so much better than anything that you or anybody else could come up with on your own. Last night was senior rec, and we got recognized by the staff. And a bunch of us got different verses, but a few of us got this verse, and I think it should apply to not only our class, but everyone here. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know what I have planned for you, says the Lord. I have plans to prosper you, not to harm you. I have plans to give you a future filled with hope. God's plans are greater than anything we could come up with on our own. Today I stand up here and I see a special group of people. I see faces of uncertainty, but I also see faces of excitement. I see some of you that are going to be great teachers. I see world-class engineers. I see a very stubborn but very effective lawyer. I see a physical therapist that's going to be godly in everything that he does and minister to every patient he has. I see a chaplain that's going to bring kids to God. I see several people that are going to Southern for nursing. I see a group that loves each other and just loves to love. A group that would do anything for the people that they care about. A group that fights for justice. A group that wants to and has every God-given ability necessary to change the world for the better and for the good. But most importantly, I see a group that loves God. Above all else, I see a godly group of people. And I want you to know that in my first semester here, I've been lucky enough to, through you guys, see more of God than I think I've seen of any group of people in my entire life. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You have showed me God. You have showed all of these underclassmen God. You've showed your teachers God, and you've showed this church God. I see a class that radiates Christ in almost everything they do. And I see a class with an amazing future that I think should terrify the world if they want to stay the same. I know God has great plans for each and every one of you. And it will not be easy, and nothing will be certain. And it will be terrifying at times. You will have to fight with everything you have. But our God is a God worth trusting with that future that he has given to all of us. The future that he's already placed in some of your hearts to create, that you know that he is calling you to. And it will be hard. You might change plans and do something different. So you'll do this, and then you'll do that, and I'm confused. This makes no sense. And God will be faithful through it all. He's here in the present, and as you grow in him now, your faith will strengthen for when the future arrives. You might not feel like you have the manpower, but the Lord will fight for you. You don't have the endurance. God's going to put you on his shoulders and walk you through the battlefield. So today, I urge you, if you have the faith now, if you have that strong faith, dive in. Just dive in. Dive right into that ocean of uncertainty. Because nothing can stop you when you have faith in the Lord. And if you feel like your faith isn't strong enough for that, God works with baby steps too. Some of the Israelites crossed the Jordan through baby steps. They were worried. They weren't excited. They felt fear. Whatever your future holds, God will be with you, and he will be faithful to you, and he will strengthen you through all of it. Over senior survival, I heard a lot of your guys' stories, and I saw how far all of you have come. God's brought you this far. Imagine what he's going to do in your futures. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day, and thank you for this amazing group of seniors. They have blessed me, they have blessed the world, they have shown you in everything they do. We have 4 months left. Some of us are worried. Some of us know exactly what we want to do because you've given that future and put it in our hearts. We all still need you. We won't always have the manpower. So just please, help us all in all of our uncertainties, all of our fears, to just zero in on you. Because the world's going to throw a lot of different opinions at us on what we should do and what we should be and how we should act and everything. Just help us to zero in on you and your future and your vision of it, because that is better than anything we can come up with on our own. We love you, and we can't wait to see you. Amen.
Our closing song, I would encourage you to listen to the words that Andrew quoted in his passage of Joshua, consecrate yourself to the Lord. We have the opportunity of consecrating first by responding to the Lord, and I would encourage you to either take a photograph of the symbol in your bulletin for Connect, or to use the Connect card to respond in that way. Part of our worship is also opportunity to give. And so today, our emphasis is Rocky Mountain Advance. Much of that goes to evangelism and education. And if you wish to make a contribution that goes directly to that, please mark that on your bulletin. Otherwise, you may just give in a general way for the benefit and blessing of this church. But we are so thankful that you've joined us today. If the deacons would stand at this time and take up the offering as we move towards the conclusion of our service. May God bless and richly hold you up.
All right, church, stand with us as we close.
To
Dear God, thank you for calling us to a beautiful future and drowning all of our fears and opening up doors and having your presence go ahead of us. And thank you on top of all of that, that as we go through our lives, as we reach our future, as we step forward, the whole time we can be yelling at the top of our lungs, I am a child of God. Please be with all of us in whatever fears we have for the future. Just constantly reassure us and let us know that you will drown out all of our fears and that they are a child of God. We love you and we can't wait to see you. Amen.